Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Thursday, September 11th, 2025, and today we're talking about if you can get rid of perennial weeds like bindweed and johnsongrass by the spring. Plus, we'll take questions about both bean beetles and squash bugs and what to do about those dweebs this year for next year, so let's do it. All right. Shouts to Bindweed, the wizard, for that awesome theme song that you just heard. You can hear more from Bindweed, Bendivad, at their YouTube channel, which I will link in the show notes. Makes me feel like Growers Daily is actually just like a spinoff of a 90s video game listening to that. Anyway, happy Thursday, everyone. September 11th, no less, a day that obviously many Americans will remember as one of the biggest national events in their lives when the World Trade Center and Pentagon were attacked and another plane went down in Pennsylvania. That day, I was 18 or 19 years old on a job interview in Colorado Springs, driving around the area, shadowing these like other young people trying to sell random stuff to other people. It was a weird gig. But anyway, I remember how surreal that whole period felt and uncertain. And in a way, it's no surprise to me that a lot of folks started farming after 9/11. I don't believe it was quite as big of a back to the land movement as, say, like Y2K or, the 2008 financial crisis or later COVID. But I think anytime a big event like that demonstrates how little is in your hands, that many of us gravitate toward a life with more under our own control. I did not so much. I was, young and mostly just cared about alcoholic drinks being in my hands. But what it did do is it kind of made me realize how important, friends and family and relationships were in my life. After that event, I kind of ditched my brief jaunt to Colorado to come live back near my friends here in Kentucky, where I grew up. I think that event also planted that bug in me of community and resilience. Also, sometimes it's a single event that starts someone on a path towards an entirely new life. Other times, the event is just one part of the process. To me, I think gardening was a seed planted by my mom and those peppers that I talked about before that we grew back when I was a kid. And that 9/11 just, sort of watered it a little bit, broke its dormancy a hair until it germinated several years later. It was one of those kind of seeds, that needed a lot of time and stratification, or maybe I'm more of a cicada. Anyway, you get the idea. But I would be curious to hear from other people if that event or what other events led you down a path towards farming and gardening. I spent some time in New York from 2004 to 2010, and I knew a lot of folks who lived through 9/11, folks who lost people, who witnessed the towers falling. And I think of them often. It really became real to me hearing their stories and being around them and seeing how they talked about that event. So sending our love to all those folks who still hurt from that event. Anyway, in my typical graceful segue fashion, it is Thursday, and on Thursdays, we like to get caught up on Patreon questions, especially now that the September show thread is up and running. Get your questions in over there, Patreon members. Today's first Patreon question comes to us from Carol Denzinger, who writes, quote, "Hey Jesse, any advice on how to handle bean beetles? I got them at the end of the last year and thought I disposed of all leaf litter properly rather than composting. They are back with a vengeance this year. I have a small garden with only about 20 feet of bush beans and 10 feet of pole beans. They don't discriminate. I tried to crush the beetles, larvae, and eggs early on, but have definitely lost the battle. Is there anything I can do to salvage the plants this season? What should I do with plants to help reduce the chance that they don't overwinter? Any other advice on how to keep them from returning next year? Thanks for all your great advice. You have made me a no-till convert," end quote. All right, so thank you, and great question here. And sorry I didn't get to it earlier, but hopefully something I can provide for you now will help you next year. So there are two main types of bean beetles: the Mexican bean beetle that looks like a ladybug that ate way too many carrots, and the bean leaf beetle that looks more like a cucumber beetle that also ate too many carrots. Now, neither of these, of course, really bother with carrots, but they do love beans and other legumes. They both overwinter under debris and in the soil and then hatch out around the same time, but have slightly different growth stages, with the bean leaf beetle larva starting at the roots and then later moving to the leaves, and the Mexican bean beetle larva starting on the leaves and staying there. But the management of either isn't altogether, dissimilar. It starts with rotating your crops away from those areas so the bean beetles are not overwintering, and then popping up with a smorgasbord laid out in front of them, right? A bunch of new bean plants to chew on. Also, after sowing or transplanting the beans, add some sort of insect netting until the beans start to flower and make sure it is secured, because unlike, say, like cabbage moths who have to fly, beetles just kind of mosey on under row cover if they need to. So yeah, make sure it's pretty well secured. Once the beans start to flower, pull the insect netting and crush any eggs you see for the Mexican bean beetle. Delaying your planting a few weeks can also help to reduce the numbers of each, though in warmer climates, the bean leaf beetle can have 2 generations, so that's fun. Just try to land the plantings in between those. Also, fertility. Sometimes folks assume because the legumes make some of their own nitrogen that they don't need any added fertility, but they do, and especially when pests are afoot. Having good compost down to help them get a jump on their growth is huge. You don't need a lot, just a little bit, right? They are going to make some of their own fertility. It does help for them to have access to some available nitrogen in the soil. Now, that will help with their fertility, but it will also help with pest prevention. But once you have them, the pest itself, what then? Well, there are some sprays and treatments you can use, and I would just look at a place like Arbico Organics to get some good ideas depending on, the type of beetle that you're dealing with. You can also, if it's early on, try adding a little top dressing the soil a little bit with some compost, or using some sort of fertigation if you have, irrigation set up that you could fertigate through, meaning add some fish hydrolysate or something like that to the soil to help them just get a little boost. For me, in general, when it comes to this pest and almost every other pest, I prefer rotating the crop, good soil prep with good compost using that insect netting, and providing good moisture throughout. If you have to crush a few eggs in the process, so be it, but those few things should do most of the work for you in terms of this pest management. Anyway, I hope something in there was helpful. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Johnson grass and bindweed elimination by next season. That's a weird sentence, but anyway, we'll see. BRB. Coffee and then the water. Like that's the ticket right there. Well, I guess we'll see.
25 by 25 foot veggie garden. Circle within a circle. Wood chip paths. Triangle beds on the perimeter. Kind of. Tomatoes growing up. A bunch of other stuff. Too many to name. Have a drink.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's second Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Heather Borner, who writes, quote, "Hi, Jesse. I'm building a new garden in Pittsburgh, PA, Zone 6B. I have bindweed and johnsongrass in an area I would like to cultivate. I have heard I could solarize it with clear plastic sheeting, or that I could lay down a cover crop, or maybe just deep mulch it. The last one seems to be the most expensive. We are headed into fall, so I feel like I missed my chance to solarize in the hottest part of the year. What are your thoughts? How should I prepare the bed in the fall to make it more ready to cultivate next year?" End quote. All right, great question. And, I've never actually been to Pittsburgh, but I've always wanted to go. I have this weird affection for it. My fond relationship to Pittsburgh stems from when I used to take a football card of Steelers quarterback Bubby Brister to Great Clips to get my hair cut when I was probably like 10 years old or something, as an example of what I wanted my hair to look like, which in retrospect was not super ambitious. So that is what I think of when I think of Pittsburgh. But anyway, I always had a fondness for it, even though I've never been. Anyway, yes, bindweed and johnsongrass. Well, the challenge here is that getting rid of it by the spring, either of those, is basically not going to be possible, or at least not entirely. So I responded to this one when it came in, but the clear plastic solarization is not going to be effective on either weed, even in the heat of the summer, unless you left it on there a really long time. Studies show that solarization with clear plastic is more effective on annual weeds and weed seeds than it is on perennials. Moreover, solarization, especially over a long period of time, also runs the risk of harming local microbiology, though it will likely rebound the microbiology after, some work and preferably some compost. A cover crop would not do much in this situation either, I'm afraid. In order to make a cover crop effective against perennials like this, the perennial weed would really need to be greatly inhibited first, and then a cover crop, and then probably more cultivation and removal of the rhizomes over time. It's going to be a process either way. Cover crops are awesome, but as I often remind folks, they are not miracle workers. Mulches can work, and compost mulch seems to do well against Johnson grass in my experience, but the bindweed will still thrive, especially with lower competition. However, the roots may become easier to remove, so that could be helpful. The most effective thing I've seen or heard for bindweed is unfortunately a year-long tarping of that area, and even then, some work will be needed to keep it in check. If you're serious about using this plot long term, you're going to want to get this preparation right. Prep the beds, tarp them as long as you can, and make sure to stay vigilant once you do start production. Mow very well around that tarp too, to prevent the bindweed that's outside of the tarp from using its solar panels, leaves, to charge its roots that are under the tarp. The annoying reality is that bindweed in particular, but also Johnson grass to some extent, are built for the exact situations the crops we want are. They are recovery species and keep the ground well covered. Unfortunately for us, that's the opposite of what we want as growers from our weeds, even if that's exactly what the soil and nature want. All that to say, those weeds like the same soil preparation as our crops, unfortunately. Anyway, let us know, listeners and watchers, what your thoughts are on all of this. Otherwise, it's break time, and when we come back, we will tackle squash bugs because they're not very good at soccer, so you can just kind of take the ball whenever they're very little. I mean, the ball is huge. It's not barely moving. Be right back.
Hey, Jesse. It's Brian here at Snowflake Farm. I thought it might be interesting to show you what it looks like when a hornworm has been parasitized by a wasp. Yeah.
Today's episode of Growers Daily is brought to you by Farmhand. Farmhand is the virtual assistant built for farmers, helping CSAs scale sales, run error-free fulfillment, and deliver 5-star service. Whether you're at 100 members or 1,000, Farmhand helps you grow without burning out. You've heard us and our farmers right here on Growers Daily. Explore farmer wins and learn more at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. Our third and final Patreon question of the day comes to us from Rancho Rodarte. I think I got that right. Who writes, quote, "Hello, Jesse. We had a booming Cinderella pumpkin / dark green zucchini patch a month ago, and now it is nothing more than a sad heap of drained brown leaves and stems after a massive squash bug invasion. This was our first season growing these crops, and we had no idea this was something we would need to battle without mercy the second they made an appearance. I'm currently clearing all of the sick, ravaged portions of the plants and disposing of them properly, but could use some advice as to how we get ahead of the bugs for next season. Research says we need to completely scrape off the first few inches, ouch, of soil / mulch, leave the ground basically fully exposed all winter, and wait 2 to 3 years before planting pumpkin / squash in this spot again. This sounds particularly destructive after we've carefully cultivated the soil the last 2 years. Suggested methods have not been particularly effective. Bug traps with honey, beer, water, vinegar mix, manual removal with duct tape on a stick, etc., in getting rid of hundreds upon hundreds of these invaders. Our chickens are beyond disinterested in the squash bugs, I assume due to their disgusting scent. What legwork can we put in now to start fresh or closer to fresh next year? I read planting later in the season is one approach, but am concerned about the thousands of eggs that have been laid already. Are there any late season crops, cover or other, that we can plant to deter occupation by squash bugs? We are located in the North Valley of Albuquerque. Many thanks for the insights, camaraderie, and community you provide," end quote. Awesome, thank you, and listeners should also know I responded to this one, which I try to do when it's pressing, or Patreon members tell me it's pressing, and effectively said that no, you will not need to leave it bare or scrape it, but that you will not want to plant squash in that same spot next year for sure. Although they can be fairly mobile, adult squash bugs overwinter near where they were raised and last found a lot of food, so beyond crop rotation, in order to avoid another immediate infestation next year, do indeed plant slightly later than you did this year if you can, and to not land right on their typical life cycle. Make sure to cover the squash with insect netting until flowering, similar to the bean beetles that we discussed earlier. And also similar to the bean beetles, you will need good fertility here. Squash really loves compost, maybe even more than I do. Hard to say, but as I often note, the best squash grows in the compost pile for a reason. If you can't afford a nice compost layer over the whole bed, make sure it has a nice handful where you plan to plant the seeds or plants. In fact, maybe starting your squash in transplants form rather than seed form will allow you to plant those later and skip the main part of the squash bug life cycle while also giving those squash when you want them. Also, since winter squashes are slow, it's worth inspecting the leaves for the impressively geometric squash bug eggs and scraping them off when you see them. What I have found, though, is that after a few years of covering and planting this way and managing our soil, we do not get significant squash bug issues because we do not get large quantities of the adults. In fact, sometimes I will see eggs, but never actually see the larva. And I suspect there must be something, eating the eggs or the larva that we have cultivated through flowers and habitats for natives, which you should also be doing for both bean beetles and squash bugs and all other bugs. Sometimes your plants just need a little helping hand. I know it can be frustrating that I'm not giving super technical nutrient or organic advice, but 95% of the time, pests boil down to crop rotation, moisture delivery, good fertility, soil conditions, and timing. Annoyingly, that's pretty much it. Anyway, thank you, as always, for the great questions, Patreon members. Let me know your thoughts, as always, listeners and viewers. I don't have a monopoly on all the good ideas or good advice ever, so don't hesitate to call me out or help me out or offer your own insight. Otherwise, we're going to leave this Thursday in our dust, but before we go, we're going to get a quick word from our friends over at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems. Whether you're growing tomatoes for market, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a high tunnel protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse or high tunnel investment. Visit Rimmel.com today to get growing. Don't forget, No-Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, and Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and Bindweed, the wizard, for the cover of the theme song today. Keep sending those to farmermike at notillgrowers.com. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. That's always my coffee break. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Those sales just go to doing more of these videos. That's how we can keep all this information free and open to the public. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers who also help us do that, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of September, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to, helps when I pull it up first, Grace Foe and Rowan Perry. All right, so shouts to these two for rescuing our story this week. Today, we are continuing with our story about Amy, class president, 5th grade. And anyway, Amy is befuddled, to put it mildly, that a literal troll, Amy is not a name caller, a literal troll has registered for school, and moreover, only Amy seems to be concerned that this is a troll, or even able to see that it is a troll. So after school, on that last day, Amy decides to follow Becca, this new kid, Amy's emphasis, not mine, home and see where exactly Becca is living. And to Amy's joy, Becca is a walker, meaning she walks home. So Amy skips her bus and carefully follows behind Becca. All the while, Becca is just walking dutifully, not quickly down the road. At one point, she even stops to inspect a piece of paper on the ground. And then just as Becca is about to get to the bridge over the town river where Amy wrongly suspects she lives, Becca turns and walks into a perfectly normal-looking duplex, but does not go inside before turning around and waving and winking at Amy. Embarrassed, Amy blushes and waves back and then rushes home to try and beat the bus so as not to get in trouble with her parents. On the way, though, she stops to pick up the paper Becca had inspected for potential evidence, and when she does, she sees it. Becca for class president, a new direction. Oh no, she didn't, Amy thinks. And that is for tomorrow on You've Been Trolled. Yeah, it works, I guess. All right, thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you then. Bye.